this together. Yeah, like sometimes it's not always gonna be a blueprint of what to do. Sometimes it's a blueprint of what not to do.
Get a team of people around you, entrepreneurs, we always feel like we can do everything, right? But there's not enough time in the day.
Pivotal things that businesses can do to help them grow.
It comes down to operations, strategy, and drive. Determine your business and differentiate yourself from anyone else.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Soapbox Hustle. We got a good one for you today. I'm James Barnes.
I'm Janita Blue.
I'm Jason Teal, and today we have a very special guest.
One of my OGs in the game.
Shanelle Johnson-Ziegler.
Welcome.
Let's go. Clap it up. So I got to give a background story on Shanelle. So I first met Shanelle, it was 2018. It was an application that went out for the Cleveland chain reaction. And excuse me, at the time, I was starting a whole new entity, right? It was like a trucking business or something. And I sent it to a writer. I say, hey, I want to put something together for this, application, whatever the case may be. She was like, you should probably just do it for the cleaning. Like, it doesn't make sense to do it for the trucking business. And I was like, nah, I want to do the trucking business. She's like, James, it makes sense to do this business and, blah, blah, blah. But long story short, I submitted the application. We went through the chain reaction process, and Shanelle was one of the ones in the back making sure, things was happening the right way, kind of guiding us along. But long story short, I actually won. She was one of the winners of the chain reaction. And, from there, that was 2018. Me and Shanelle been, connecting. She's one of the best business advisors over here at JumpStart, but I'll let her tell about her title and her role and kind of dive into the weeds of it.
Thank you. So I am the Senior Associate of Small Business Deal Flow at JumpStart. It is a long title, but mostly I'm just a business advisor. And I say just a business advisor, but I'm a coach, I'm a counselor, I'm a mental health therapist when need be.
So the life of a business owner.
But I love it, and I love the work that I do. I get to work with small business clients of all stages, all sizes, and really have an opportunity to learn about their businesses, what they do, how they do things, and figure out what resources they need, what connections we can make to get them to the next level.
So Shanelle, can you just kind of take us on your journey and just kind of really just tell your story about how you got to, really helping people out in the small business realm?
Yes.
Therapist and all.
Yeah, therapy is one of those ones. James knows about that.
No, for sure. Absolutely.
But I started as a young child. My father had a fencing company. So when it was the summertime, I'm the youngest of five, only girl. My brother and my father would be working the fencing business. And sometimes I would sit on the truck. Sometimes I would be at home. But I got a chance to kind of see how a business ran, but not necessarily run the most effective way.
Mm.
And then fast forward just in life, I started working for the city and I started doing certifications for them, minority business, female, Cleveland small business certifications. And from there, it was kind of a reality to me that these people wanted to work with the city, but they didn't necessarily always have the wherewithal
Absolutely.
of how to do it, what to do, and how things should go. I continued on in my journey, and I went on to become the certification director for the Ohio Minority Supplier Development Council. It's a mouthful. I know.
All these different organizations in Cleveland, right?
Right. For short, OMSDC. And there, I did certifications for private companies. So it was a national certification, but if you wanted to work for a Macy's or you wanted to get your products into a bank, you wanted to be with a limited brands, which owns like Victoria's Secrets and things of that nature. That was where I started. And I started to see, okay, businesses are getting bigger. I saw $1 million companies there. I saw $1 billion Black-owned companies there.
Wow.
And that was something that was super powerful to me. And then being able to see that there were so many more Black-owned businesses, but just businesses in general, that were really out here doing a lot of powerful things.
Mm-hmm.
I was working there, got an opportunity to come to JumpStart, and I've been here for almost 8 years. So,
Solid. That's beautiful. When you first started your journey, or just being around your family, you was working with your dad and your brothers, right? Similar experience, right? My dad, he was what you would call a professional painter, but his mind, he probably thought that he owned his own business, right? But from in reality, the reality of it was he was really self-employed, right? He took on all the risk of a business owner, but without having necessarily the reward of a business owner. So, what was one of some of those things that stood out to you early? Like, we gotta change this, right? This is not a way a business should be ran. I want to make sure that if I'm helping out a business, I can put these things in place to help it run more efficiently.
Yeah.
And also to that, how old were you when you started to notice those things?
Um, I've been a smart kid all my life.
Yes.
That's what we all say, Chanel.
But I was really, it was like 6 or 7.
Wow,
Like,
wow.
truly, I mean, my father was a firefighter, so
Mm,
he worked on 24 hours, off 48 hours. So those other 48 hours is when he would do the
the
business.
business, right?
So to me, I saw that somebody had like a passion for something. And I learned from him that, his father had the same business. So it kind of was like generational. And
Mm,
even to this day, my brother still is, 2 of my brothers are still working in the business.
wow.
So it's just something that you continue on. I think what made it one of those things was looking at the
Mm,
city clients, and seeing those people come in for certification. We're talking about like, hey, you need your workers' comp. What is that?
mm,
Hey, you need this. What is that? So that was kind of eye opening. But when I got to OMSDC and we were asking people for financials, we were asking people for operating agreements, and people were like, "What is an operating agreement? It's just
wow.
me." I was like, "Okay, well, this is what an operating agreement is." Well, I got a partner, but I don't think nothing gonna
Right,
happen.
right, right.
Like, no, you need that. Like, this is how you determine your business and differentiate yourself from anyone else, and make sure that you cover yourself in
Yeah.
case of.
Yeah.
Shout out to the people like Chanel that's doing the real work in the city, right? Making sure that small business have what they need. I could remember the very first business class I went through was through UCI Next Step. It was, so I forget the whole name of it, but anyway, it was different modules in the classroom, right? So then came to the financial module, and I'm sweating, right? We gotta have our P&L, our balance sheet, and our complete financial statements. Didn't have a clue, right? Now, this is before AI, this before the internet was real heavy. What I did was I found some guy overseas. How I found him, I have no clue. I'm like, yo, I need these financial statements in place like ASAP. And he delivered. So took the class and we went through the process. But it's important. Like a lot of businesses don't have these different documents in place and don't know where to start. So what advice would you give some of these business owners on where to start to, start the process of having your financials in place?
I think it starts with having an understanding of what are you trying to do. Have a conversation with an accountant. Make sure that your accountant is not just putting you to be like, hey, I want to get a refund. I don't want to pay no taxes. But
So pause real quick, Chanel. Let's take it even back. If that's for those business owners who can't afford an accountant, right? What's a quick way, or let's say a inexpensive way to
Excel
manage?
spreadsheet.
There you go.
Hmm.
I think when you're in business, we all know that there are tons and tons of expenses that pull up and pop up for you. But I feel like an accountant is one of those ones where you got to bite the bullet on it. An
Hmm.
Excel spreadsheet is great, but how many times are you going to actually go in that spreadsheet, understand what you're putting in that spreadsheet, where it's supposed to be in the spreadsheet, even knowing what the template is for the spreadsheet? But if that's all that you have, you can start in an Excel spreadsheet. It's nothing wrong with that. I think the goal is that you grow into like getting to an
Elevation,
accountant.
yeah.
But having an accountant and having that conversation, so many times people, want to take a loss, but maybe you want to go out and get some funding. In 2 years, a year from now, you keep taking losses, you won't be able to get that funding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is a really good conversation because I don't know, for some reason, like especially now we hear people say, "Oh, I got my LLC," or like, what does that mean, right? There's so many different layers to it.
Man, you could pay $125 and have an LLC. That
Right.
means
Yeah.
not to
Literally.
discredit anybody,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
But
No.
that's
Yeah.
that's
Go
that.
get one if you don't got one.
Yeah.
Go get one, yeah. But you got to know how to utilize it, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And I think the biggest thing is for like the viewers out there is really leveraging relationships, really try to soak in as much knowledge because there's so many
Mm,
layers to business and this we just kind of scratching the surface, right? So I know you talked about funding, you talked about insurance. Like there's so many different things, and I think sometimes people think maybe they've made it, but in reality, like it's constant work. It's constant work.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, right? Especially getting started, and you haven't been exposed to these things, right? You don't have a formal education around it. You the first generation business owner. Unfortunately for Chanel, right? You had some experience or something to look at as a
It
model,
wasn't
right?
the best experience, but I
But hey,
mean,
but
it was something.
yeah, like sometimes it's not always gonna be a blueprint of what to do. Sometimes it's a blueprint of what not to do,
Yeah.
right? And that was the case for me as well. It's like, how can I make these things better? But you be able to do that and then use that experience to help elevate other businesses as well.
But you were able to identify it at such a young age, which is brilliant, right?
I mean, I think for me, it was one of those things I knew that my dad didn't put in all his time and all his effort into it.
Hmm.
So it would be like, hey, my daddy got a business, but my daddy go to work too. I was like, and I think, his schedule was so flexible that we knew for the entire year what schedule you're going to be on. So you know when your days come, so you can plan around that. But I think it was definitely something that, with it being seven of us in a house at sometimes, it was something that definitely kept the lights on, kept the food in the refrigerator, and he made sure that we had and he provided. So I think from that lens, I saw providing, but I also saw like, hey, sometimes you got to work two jobs.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to do it. And I think for him, fencing wasn't a company; it was another job.
It's like a job.
So I'm happy you said that, right? The fact that he did work a job. What's some advice you would give those business owners who kind of balance? I know it's a lot of controversy, right, with some of these other business podcast platforms, right, saying, "Hey, you should," "Oh, no, you shouldn't." From your take, right, you being one of the first people that they talk to coming through the door, Jumpstart. How would you?
Don't quit your day job.
Yeah,
I think, you can go into it. Some people talk about the leap of faith and how it is amazing for them and how it's worked out for them, and that will be their journey and their story. That is not always the case for every single person. But I think that if you continue to work your job until you're able to actually pay yourself,
yeah,
if you can't pay yourself or if you work in a job and you're not paying yourself at all, ain't no point in you quitting your job. It ain't I'm gonna make X amount of money and then I'm gonna quit my job. No, you got to be able to say, hey, I'm doing this business and I'm paying myself.
yeah,
I'm doing this business. Now, if you're starting off and you just want to be able to, take all the money and put it back into the business to grow it, that makes sense.
hmm,
But if you're not doing that, that's where you have a problem of like, don't quit your job. You'll need it.
yeah.
So I was like, so before people get to that point where they feel like they want to quit their job because they started a business, what advice would you give the viewers in terms of things that you need to do before you even get to a place where you're thinking, I want to quit my job?
So definitely, you need to have like your financials in order. You need to have financial projections. We don't talk a lot about business plans, but I think that you need to have a business plan and you have to have a strategy on how you're going to reach that business plan.
Hmm.
Like it can't just be the people are going to come to me. It can't be I'm just putting it on social media and they gonna come. It can't be I'm popular and they gonna come to me. You gotta really put a strategy in there and think about how are you gonna continue to grow your business before you take that leap. And then also you have to be in a space. I have a friend of mine that she started a business and she worked it for about a good 3 years. It was successful. She had employees before she finally took that leap of faith and said, you know what, I'm gonna leave my job.
Yeah.
And now she is truly living in her purpose and her passion.
That's solid. That's solid. I love to hear the success stories behind that because very few people, is able to take that leap of faith. When I got started, right, I was young. I was 18, 19 years old. So I didn't have many responsibilities. So I was able to go out and, bullshit around and, what I'm saying, take some major losses and, all right, we get it right back. But a lot of people don't have the luxury of taking that route, right?
I did. I had to go. I think it's so important to get that work experience, and I feel like every job that like I've ever had or we ever had, that's experience that we can take into our business. So don't be afraid to get a job, but like you said, when it's time to go, you got to just do it. Otherwise,
So,
Yeah.
Janita, I'm happy you hit on that point too. The fact you did work a job. What was the point that you reached, right? How did you know it was time to part ways and go ahead and focus 100% on BIM?
I would say it was just a gut feeling, to be completely honest. I mean, I just knew it was time for me to go. I realized because I was working my business and my job, and I realized that the balance, it just was an imbalance there. It's like I'm neglecting on my clients. Like I need to focus on this. And so as I just continue to, put my focus on that, like the day I quit, like that first week that I quit my job, it was just like floodgates just started opening up and the
Mm.
people started to come to me because I was more available at that point. So definitely don't do it when you don't feel like you're ready, but when you are ready,
Look,
it's okay
I got
to.
evicted. I lost everything. No, like I worked a daytime job, but I quit my daytime job.
Uh,
And I think business was all right, but I had to split that with two other people. So I'm
mm,
thinking like, yeah, the business is bringing in like $12,000 or $13,000 a month, which
mm.
back when I was 24, 25, that was a lot of
That was
money for me.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the reality was I had to split it. We had to, we had a little bit of payroll, we had material
So you're looking at
supplies,
$200 at the
gas,
end of everything.
and it was all bad. But
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So
It's
No,
okay to
look,
go back to work too.
go to
And it's
work.
Yes.
okay to go back to work. I quit my job twice. First time I was just young. I was like, I can't do this no more. Right.
What would like so in your mind, like being prepared, what made you think about like, okay, I'm ready? What made you know that you were ready? Was it like the stress of the job itself? Um, and were you putting things in place to be able to really kind of take off already?
Definitely. I think the first time I was definitely in my younger years, I just was like, I saw myself being a business owner and I wanted to just give it a try. Right. So that was the first time I did it. And a little bit of just not even really stress, just like this doesn't feel like where I belong.
Mhm.
Um, and then the second time, it was definitely like my business is successful. People trust me. I have consistent clients. It's time for me to really put 100% into this.
and
Yeah,
Janita is
and
what
ever
she's
since.
what I like to call a free spirit. You can't put her in a box or she gonna break out that John. Yeah. So I think we kind of talked about it the other day. You said they tried to put some constraints on you. It was like, yeah, I'm gone.
Yeah, if you could find a place that works for you, because I loved every job that I had. Like I said, we all take away something from every experience, and it helps us grow. And whether that's customer service, IT, like just every single job, color marketing, every single job that I had, literally, I'm using those same tools in my business today.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, you talked about growth. What would you say like some like pivotal things that businesses can do to help them grow?
It comes down to operations, strategy, and just like drive.
Hmm.
If your operations aren't in place, no matter what kind of growth you have, you'll find yourself stumbling back because you just don't have the things properly set up.
Hmm.
Um, like having a strategy in place of like where do you actually see yourself and where do you want to go. Oftentimes people just say, "Hey, I'm start a business. I'm about to meet $1 million man or woman." Well, how do you get to that point?
Hmm.
What is going to be the next step for you? Like you're selling clothes. Your clothes are $50. How many pairs of clothes is it going to take you to get to $1 million? What are you thinking about? Oh, well, I can do styling on the side to think about how I can, get $1,000 just to style a person or whatever the number may be.
Yeah.
But that's a faster way to get to your million. But you got to think about it, and have a strategy on how you're actually going to grow, and just having a drive.
Yeah.
Like, I think entrepreneurs are all passionate about what they do and how they do it. But I think you have to have a drive that day in and day out, you don't quit, and you got to figure out how do you get over the hurdles, because there's truly a lot of hurdles. When you're hustling, it's not the same as when you are an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So y'all see why we so successful. We had Chanel leading the way. But no, but you hit that's so important. You talk about operations, right? So at IMG, we experienced so much growth, right? But the operations weren't intact. to support the growth on the back end. So we took some losses, right? So then we got to go back down to the bare bones and rebuild to get back where we were, but to even surpass that. But I think that's one of the most important things, right? Making sure that the infrastructure is in place on the back end to make sure that you can be successful on the front end. But today, Instagram, right, got everybody fooled. Everybody run $1 million corporation, right? Everybody in the world got $1 million business right now, according to social media. But that's not always the case. It take a lot of work on the back end.
So, Chanel, would you say that it is important to, I guess, get a team of people around you kind of in the beginning? So, because I think as entrepreneurs, we always feel like we can do everything, right? But there's not enough time in the day.
Hmm.
So I think, we start to lack in some areas because we're focused on this or that. So yeah, we may lack in operations or marketing, but in your opinion, at what point do you think you should bring a group of people around you to help?
I, from the very beginning, if you really truly want to be able to impact your business, like everything that I say as an advisor, my clients don't have to take it.
Hmm.
I was like, and I'll tell them like, it's your business. This is my thoughts. I'm only looking on the outside, so I can't tell you what to do, but I can give you what I would do or how I see this or what my vision is. You may be going down a path that I'm like, we just talked about this though. Let's back up. Wait a minute. So when you get in a group of advisors, and I don't think that you should always just have one. I'm big on people having multiple people in their lives. Sometimes our information will be conflicting, and it's
Hmm.
good for you to peel back the layers to see what makes sense. But it's better to have those voices than to just have yours, especially if you're in a space where you haven't done this before, you don't have the necessary tools. We can give you tools, resources, and I think that as your business grows, you need to get a group of advisors,
Hmm.
like a board of advisors more so. Somebody that you can talk to, you can pull them all together at one time and have a conversation to really be able to talk about like how we're going to move, what we're going to do different, where we're going to go. So for smaller businesses, startups, get somebody from the gate. If you're a little bit larger, find somebody now, find a few people, and find you a board of advisors. I'm pretty sure you may be talking to your friends already. And that's great. They may have similar experiences. They may be going through similar things, but you are all in kind of in the same level. One thing my daddy
Hmm.
always told me was, if you're the smartest person in the group, you need to find a new
Talk
group
to
of
them.
friends.
Talk to them.
So you got to find that board of advisors got to be people that you look up to, you aspire to be, and you don't always have to aspire to be them, but you need to aspire to say, hey, they've achieved something I haven't, they've done something different, and I respect their opinion.
Important. That's so important, man. You said a lot. Uh, yeah, but early on, right? Unofficially, I've always had a board of mentors, advisors. They didn't even know, right? But they knew that they was getting those constant phone calls that, hey, I got this situation, or how can I structure this and that. But I was telling Jason yesterday, you actually met one of my mentors, older guy named Brooks. So I told you my father was a, a professional painter, right? But he was working for this guy who owned a ton of rental properties in the Cleveland Heights area, like 30, 40 properties. But my dad, he did go to school for, the trade of painting. So he was the truth. So I learned up under him and, developed my work ethic, things like that. But I was like 14, 15 years old. I reached out to I ain't say reached out to my dad. I told my father, right? I say, tell Brooks that, I would love to have lunch with him at 14, 15. And he said he told him, he's like, that's interesting. But we did have lunch together. From there, we developed a relationship. And he said, at least once a month, I want to meet with you to go over the business plan, to make sure that, we're progressing and just see how things are overall. But to this day, he's still one of my go-to advisors. I get him on the phone. He give me all the advice I need.
That's good. I think it's crazy because people don't realize how important it is to have a good network of people. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're just looking for a job, like you are. I'm telling you, like I've been through some situations where before I started my business and I needed a job, like a really good job,
Mm.
I would just go back to the people it was like a long list of people that I knew.
Yep.
And I would be like, who can I call? Can I call this person? Can I call it? Can they make a call for me? And it is so important to build a network of people. Even now, as you're starting to meet new people,
Yeah.
just constantly stay in contact, follow up. whatever you can do to really just keep the relationship.
So how can people get in contact with you? Like say somebody's watching this, they're not in Cleveland. Do you only work with Cleveland? Are you only a Cleveland advisor?
We're Northeast Ohio.
Okay.
We do also have an office in Canton, Ohio. So if there are anybody down in the Stark County area, you can reach out to JumpStart at jumpstartinc.org. Um, Look at the top of the line and it says get started and click for apply for a small business assistant.
So, Rook, I want to touch on that real quick, right? Jumpstart, can you give us high level picture of what Jumpstart is, what they are to the community? And then second thing is, can you tell them who the best client of Jumpstart is?
I don't know, you had a lot to say before we got on camera.
Off the record. Let's leave that off the record.
JumpStart is a entrepreneurial service organization. We have two main facets that we look at, small businesses and then tech startups. We have been around for 21 years.
Wow.
Last year was our 20th year.
Wrap it up.
Yes. We assist entrepreneurs with one-on-one advising, networks, programs, events. We have a variety of programs as well. So there are a lot of things for a lot of different types of entrepreneurs and business owners. If you need to get in touch with us, you can always send an email to smallbiz@jumpstartinc.org.
We'll put these links down below on the video.
Yep. And that comes directly to me.
Hold on the second part.
Oh. My favorite client. Shout out to all the rest of my favorite clients. All my clients are my favorite clients. But James.
Thank you. Really? Get out of here.
Hey, really? I'm with you, y'all.
I'm touched. Wasn't expecting that at all.
Really quick, I know you said that some folks that have the opportunity to pitch. What kind of advice would you give to someone that's looking to pitch their idea to try to seek funding?
So there's two things. I think in backing it up, this is a programmatic pitch. So they went through a program for 12 weeks and then they'll pitch at the very end. James actually went through this program.
Let's not talk about it. I'm still a little bitter.
Well, but when you are pitching, you need to already know, most of the cases, you already know who you're pitching to.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you're pitching is how you pitch. Mm-hmm. You have to know your audience. If you are pitching to a group of investors, and I'll say this, and this is my caveat, is everybody is not going to have an investor. The world of investors doesn't just exist for every business.
Yeah.
Investors think very hard, very long about who they give their money to and what they do with their funds. And oftentimes you have to realize or figure out, is that the right opportunity for you? So if you are pitching, you could be pitching your business to get a contract or anything like that. Know your audience, tailor your pitch to the audience, and you need to be pitching. This isn't necessarily about just the services. I can say from my OMSDC days was when people wanted to do work with corporations, the corporate supplier diversity professionals were always interested in people who could come up and tell them how their business could affect theirs. So don't come asking me what you want. Showcase and tell me why your solution is the best thing for me and how you move forward.
How to win friends and influence people. Dale Carnegie used to speak on that, how to provide value to other people. But so if I can add to that, Shanelle, speaking from both sides, right, actually being involved in the pitch, right, and then I was actually a judge one year. So by pitching, I would say understand your business, right? Know your business in and out and understand your financials. Know your financials. You can't get up there saying, I'm going to make $1 million next year. Well, how? Right? You made 20,000 last year. How you gonna make this jump? You don't have a plan in place. So the judges, they weren't born yesterday. These are seasoned business veterans, so they can see the holes in your business plan. And then from a judge standpoint, I want to say I was looking for businesses that could successfully transition from the B2C to B2B, right? How you gonna get the wholesale dollars? How you gonna get the big bucks? So if you selling a product hand to hand, how you plan to get into Target? How you plan to get into Whole Foods? Things like that. It has nothing to do with JumpStart. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I was like the judge in the room, like, we gonna pick her. They was like, do we got to? Yes. But no, it was a good experience though. It was a real good experience. But man, I'm so happy we finally got Shanelle to get on the podcast. We got to get some of your compadres. We got to get Chris in here, you know, the whole JumpStart team. But we had to start with the best first.
Hey.
No, but I appreciate you taking the time. Anything you want to throw out the people should know about just starting the entrepreneurial journey?
Advice.
I think you have to be authentic to who you are. Um, utilize social media, but make sure that your voice is still your voice. So when I say be authentic is, jump into something that you feel comfortable about, you have knowledge about, you have an understanding about. And if you don't, then find a way to get all of the knowledge to better understand what you're doing and how you're doing. It's nothing wrong with going into something that is, bringing in money if you can understand it and be able to speak to it and sell it. You can sell water to a well, however, the well has to see the value.
Mm.
And so if me breathing doesn't help me see the value and you can't get that out, you have to figure out another way.
So we had to summarize all the gems that Shanelle dropped on y'all today. I would say, understand your financials, have a solid business plan in place. If you can't do a business plan, I'm a big proponent of executive summaries to start, right? It's a much shorter version, but it's still effective. You probably say otherwise, right? But
your executive summary is supposed to come last. It's the summary of
Of
all
the-
the things in the business plan. But I think if you are really in a point where you're just trying to get it out, an executive summary can help, and then go write the business plan and rewrite the business.
right, yeah. But the business plan should be ever changing, right? It's not like the business plan we wrote in 2016 doesn't apply to our business plan in 2025. It's just
Your
not.
business plan that you wrote in 2016 that in 2025 doesn't apply to 2026 either, or 2024.
Absolutely, yeah.
You need to be looking at it consistently, whether it's on a quarterly basis or every 6 months, at least once a year. You should look at it because you're doing things with your business. You may be getting new partners. You may have new experiences that you're creating. And those things can change. They change the financials. They change the way that you market your business as a whole too.
Yeah,
What's that?
solid.
Also, team of advisors. That was a really good one.
Gotta have a team of advisors, man, to make sure that they qualify to be in that position. You can't just go find, somebody on the corner and say, I need you to help me with this business plan. No, you want to make sure that they have the credentials in place, right? They understand business at a different level. Like you said, if you're the smartest person in the room, then these people around you can't help you go to, where you're trying to get to. But, excuse me. But all in all, I think we got some real good gems today.
Thank you, Shanelle.
Thank you.
So, again, this is another episode of the Soapbox Hustle, your favorite hustler's favorite podcast, and we signing out.